Hi, I'm Melissa with Piper, and welcome to the Piper Education video series. This video will teach you about the components of the Piper Computer Kit, which will allow your students to have the greatest success learning and building with Piper. Knowing the parts of the Piper computer can help you answer on-the-spot questions from students and allow you to feel confident when something doesn't go exactly as planned. Let's start with the king of parts, the Raspberry Pi. Piper computers will not work without the Raspberry Pi. These are microcomputers that are complete with a CPU. This is the central processing unit, often referred to as the brains of the computer. The case we provide for the Raspberry Pi allows you to prevent damage and fit directly into the Piper Computer Kit. The SD card. The SD card stores all of the software for the Piper computer. It allows you to use our software when inserted into the Raspberry Pi, and for students to save what they have completed in story mode and Piper code for future use. GPIOs. These are general purpose inputs and outputs. These are pins that allow you and your students to communicate with the computer. For example, connecting a button and an LED allows you to program for the LED to turn on when the button is pressed. Next, we will explore some inputs and outputs you can easily utilize with the Raspberry Pi. First, the mouse. Your students will need this to get started on story mode and to navigate through the software. The mouse is connected to the Pi via USB port. The speaker. The speaker plays the sound associated with the videos in story mode. Make sure you turn on the speaker while using the computer and turn it off after use. You must charge the speaker between uses. If your speaker isn't working correctly, make sure to check to see if it is charged first. The screen. The display is directly connected to the Raspberry Pi via HDMI cord. If your screen is not working, make sure all cables are plugged in properly and snugly to the Raspberry Pi and on the back of the screen. Note, you should avoid removing the screws connecting each small wooden part of the screen. The parts that we have discussed thus far are important for the build phase of the Piper experience. In the next section, we will discuss parts that are important for story mode and Piper code. Understanding these parts will help you troubleshoot with your students throughout the experience. The breadboard. The breadboard is a tool to connect inputs and outputs to the Raspberry Pi. It is classically used in electronics for less permanent connections when you do not want to do things like solder. Inside the breadboard are metal strips that allow current to flow horizontally and vertically, depending on where you are placing a pin. The mini versions of these breadboards only do this in one direction. Jumper wires. These wires are used to connect the GPIO pins to inputs and outputs in the breadboard. The colors allow you to stay organized, but they don't actually mean anything in terms of functionality. Buttons. There are two types of buttons in your kit, large colored ones and small black ones. The only major difference between these buttons is the way that they plug into the breadboard. LEDs. You have 5 different colored LEDs. These are small light bulbs used in electronics. You'll notice that the LED has 2 different sized legs. This is because LED stands for light emitting diode. They are unidirectional. You must plug in the longer leg into the positive end of the circuit and the shorter leg into the negative side. Buzzer. The buzzer allows you to make sound much like a speaker, but with limited frequencies. For example, you might want the buzzer to sound when a certain event occurs. Switches. Switches are a lot like buttons in that they're a way to control whether or not current can flow through the circuit. This allows you to turn things on and off. Instead of pressing down, switches slide to complete the circuit. Thus far, you should have a solid understanding of the Raspberry Pi, as well as all of the possible inputs and outputs. In the final section of this video, we will look at the parts of the computer case and how to power it up. Wooden pieces and fastening hardware. These are the pieces you will use to construct the kit with the blueprint. Pay attention to the letters on each of the baggies to know which type of bolt or screw to use in each step of construction. Note: you should save these baggies if you plan to deconstruct the kit at the conclusion of the classroom experience. That way, you and your students can keep things organized for reuse. Other than a coin for the open and close mechanism, you should only need hands and the materials provided to assemble the computer. Make sure you save the box for storage if you decide to deconstruct. Note: roughly 4 deconstruct and rebuild cycles are advised in order to keep the quality of the kit intact. Beyond that, quality may decrease. The battery pack. The battery is a very important component. You must charge the battery pack before you turn on any Piper computer. If you or an administrator ordered a classroom bundle, you should have also received a spare parts kit and a 10-port USB hub for charging. Each spare parts kit includes extra hardware that may get lost in the building process. There should already be extra fastening hardware in the baggies, but we know that sometimes students can lose track of small pieces. The 10-port USB hub allows you to connect the micro USB cords for your batteries directly. Please note that if your batteries are fully depleted, this charger may take 24 hours or longer to fully recharge the batteries. If you need quicker charging, find a USB charging adapter, like for an iPhone, and charge directly into the wall. We hope this video has helped you better understand the components of the Piper computer kit. For more classroom tips and how-tos, watch the rest of the videos in our Piper Education video series. Thanks for watching and for inspiring the inventors of tomorrow.